Hey everyone, welcome to the Centre Bounce. Today we're going to be talking about the 603,000 defender, Mr. Sam Docherty from the Carlton Blues. Stay tuned. Big J, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Nice to have the day off. Talking Supercoach and talking footy and catching up on training reports and whatnot. So pretty happy. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Very good. And especially, as you can see, just coming off work. The last few days I've been working from home. I was a bit unwell, under the weather, but we still got to pump it out, somehow. It's all for the content, all for the viewers. But yeah, today, first day back in the office, and good day, cold day for a jumper. So, but I mean, someone who knows a lot about cold days, someone like Sam Docherty, not a lot of hair on his head. He came out on fire last year, though. Did you see that start to the year?
I believe I didn't start him, but I definitely brought him in pretty quick. I'm one of my first upgrade targets down back, and obviously he did really well, so I'm pretty happy with that decision. How about yourself?
I didn't start him either, and he really just came out of the blocks like an absolute man possessed. And it really was one of the best, one of those feel-good stories of the year, from what he's had to go through with his battles, his health battles, to come back. And he kicked a goal as well in that first week. It was just like the stars had all aligned for Doc and the Blues, and it looked like they were going to be the real deal and make finals and blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, we know what happened. But still, Docherty, his story was awesome to start the year. And yes, like you, very quickly, we had to get him into the team because this guy was really capable of scoring. I hadn't started him because it was his first year averaging over 100 in 3 years. It's had been some time, obviously, for him to reach those heights again. So I just took the cautious approach. But obviously, this year he really turned it around.
Yeah, I guess kind of just in general as well, like defenders last year seemed to score a lot more points-wise than previous years. The top six were guys who were, let's say, 105 plus, whereas in the past, they might have been guys who were just on that 100 mark kind of thing. So, sorry, I've got to sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
He's always been around the mark, but then maybe not like at the top echelon. And then obviously last year's really kind of broken out, smacked it in the face, and done really well that way.
Yeah, 100%. You can say he smacked it in the face, all right. He had 10 monster scores over 120 last year, and 4 scores between 100 and 120. So that's 14 scores out of the 22 games. He had 8 scores under 100, 4 of those in the 90s. So they also were really close to the ton. Could have been 16 games out of the 22. He had 1 score in the 80s and 3 scores in the 70s this year. So as you can see, there was a lot of consistency in his scoring, and someone that his worst scores really weren't that bad. I mean, everyone's human and they can be afforded to have a couple of bad ones, can't they?
Yeah, definitely. I believe Carlton probably had a couple of injuries down back. I know Zach Williams and a couple of other guys were injured, at least to kind of start the season or happen through the middle. And Docherty really took over that halfback distributor role that he'd been doing so well with in the past. Really, really proficient that way. Did have some monster scores, as you're saying, but did have those kind of games where I think maybe Carlton were dominating and they didn't have the ball in the back line, or they weren't kind of as consistent as what they should have been. Speaking to Pommy in our team review video, he definitely noted that as one of the issues as well. And obviously that led to them losing out on making the top 8 just on percentage. Whereas, some games they dominated. He got 139, 128. There's a couple of 140s in there as well. But then they also had games where things just fell apart and, he's scoring a 70.
Yeah. And I guess I can show sort of the heat map of what it looked like for him when he was scoring his 70s. So in round 10, you can see that he's playing a lot on this outside. A lot of the ball that he's getting are along the boundary on the wings there. And that tends to be a really bad spot for people when they're trying to score Supercoach wise. Same thing here with round 16. A lot of wide possessions. You can see that he was getting a few in the midfield, but he was tending to play more on the outside wide, and that's not really a very positive way of scoring. Again, likewise in round 19, a lot of the ball, but a lot of it around the outside. So that sort of explains, I suppose, why things were a bit interesting with the way he was scoring from time to time, especially when he was with those low disposal numbers. But this guy, like the other primos in the back line last year, have demonstrated an ability to bounce back quite quickly. And you're able to wait for them to have one or two poor games, but they're very rarely in a row. They tend to have one poor game, and then they'll be back on their merry way and flying away. And that very quickly rectifies their price drop. They don't really drop too much.
Yeah, definitely. And there's something to note as well, that kind of Carlton's identified their need for a good winger, and brought in the likes of Blake Acres as well. So I don't think he'll be playing as much wing. Maybe he pushes up the wing as Carlton locks in the forward line, locks the ball into their forward line and scores that way. Maybe does a bit of a Jaden Short and runs up to the wing and distributes to the forward line. But he won't be playing as much wing time as we've shown there in the following year.
No, by reports, he's actually going to be playing a bit more midfield time this year, especially with the injury to Sammy Walsh and Matthew Kennedy also having had his setbacks with a Liz Frank as well, I think, as well as a broken jaw from last year. So the Carlton engine room, I think, will be relying a bit on Docherty's involvement as well there. And it's not like he hasn't had experience. If anything, the last 2 rounds of the year last year did see him play a lot more midfield minutes, and he got a lot more CBAs. And it's something that is really exciting because it showed that he can really score a lot there. And I guess I can show you the heat map while we're talking about him. In terms of, there you go. You can see he had a lot more CBAs. He was starting in the middle. This was round 22, and then he would go with the ball whilst not much forward. He would start in the middle and get a lot of ball off halfback as well. So that's what saw him get a lot of points. Again, starting in the middle and branching out. This guy really flourished in the midfield last year, in those last 2 weeks, because not only was he getting disposals, he was also getting a lot of tackles and contested possessions, something that he wasn't getting as much playing in the back half.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's something to be said as well. We've seen with Pendlebury and a couple of other players that are these mature age guys in what you would consider to be younger teams, kind of taking that general role, either from a half-back but also from a midfield as well. Happened at North with Cunnington, happened, Pendlebury and a few other players as well. So I think, like you're saying, Docherty kind of coming in, taking that role. His CBAs from the majority of the year was 7%, which is nothing. And then the last couple of rounds went up to that 80 mark. And obviously we saw the monster scores there. If that continues in 2023, it's going to be pretty fun to watch. And you better be an owner of him.
Yeah, correct. And it looks to be that he's going to have this role for at least guaranteed the first month of football. That's what the Carlton team have, in their official reports, were saying that it's going to be at least a month before Sam Walsh comes back into the side. And even from there, he could have more midfield minutes depending on the sort of approach that Carlton want to take with their prodigy. This guy is the future Sam Walsh, and he's a workhorse. He's now had 2 seasons where he started off the season injured. They might want to play a bit more conservative and play him on the outside. Maybe have him be on the opposing wing with Acres because of his ability to run up and down all day, every day. And that could leave a guy like Docherty still to play prime midfield minutes. So there's still definitely a lot of upside. I know it's crazy to talk about upside for a guy whose costs just over 600K, but imagine this guy scoring you around the 120s, playing in the midfield for 600K. That if you talking midfield, that's a bargain, I think.
Yeah, I think probably the only real negative with the pick, I'm starting him at the moment, but The only real negative with the pick is the fact that he is appropriately priced. If he gets moved to the halfback, he scores well. If he gets moved to the midfield, he scores well. Wing kind of hurts him a bit. But the only real negative is the fact that he's appropriately priced. So if he does have a bad game, he will drop, let's say, 50, 60K if he has a couple of those in a row. There's not a lot of value in the pick because he's supposed to be scoring 110. Hey, he's priced at 110.
Yep, that's right. He's priced at 110. But if he's dishing out 120s by playing in the midfield, not only are you getting his scoring, he's going to go up in price. It's very likely that he might have one poor game, but with a guy of his caliber, he can bounce back right away. Like him, Stewart, Dawson. It's very hard to see these guys, even Sicily. It's very hard to see these guys have two stinkers in a row. For him, I think one of the biggest issues is what happens. It's up in the air whether or not if Walsh does come back, Hewitt is playing full time. If Kennedy comes back, if that means that he's now going to go to the back line to play with Sard. Now, whilst he showed he could score there, but now you've got a healthy Williams as well, who missed a lot of last year. So now you've got quite a few distributors coming out of the back line for Carlton. It's a question of, well, I think they'd all eat into each other's points, right?
Yeah, maybe. We'll wait and see what happens. There's always a big thing about too many cooks in the kitchen. And unless, they open up some extra positions on field, everyone needs key defenders. Everyone needs small defenders, that kind of thing. Maybe Williams gets relegated to the VFL for half the season. You kind of don't know, especially with these guys coming off injury, what's going to happen.
Yeah. So it's a wait and see, but he's in my team. Is he in your team, Big J?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, he's in my team. I think it's probably good to start a couple of these guys who are appropriately priced, just so you don't miss out on the monster scores as you upgrade. And like Joe said before, if he's going to rise 20, 30, 50K, you don't want to have to try and triple trade to bring in a 650K premium.
Correct. I agree. He's in my team, as I said, and for all of those reasons. So thanks so much, guys, for watching. This was our discussion on Sam Docherty. Please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell because we're pumping out all of these reviews, all of these profile deep dives. And if you have any requests, please leave them down below.
Guys, and remember, join our group. We can win some amazing prizes. We've got a jersey there, a couple of tickets to a footy game, and then an AFL store voucher. How do they join up, Joe?
You got to like. Nah, I'm just joking. They got to be subscribed to our channel and they got to follow us on the Centre Bounce on Twitter. So if you're able to do that, and then obviously put in the code that you're going to have down below in the description. Once you've got all three of those things done, you're in and you're up for some prizes.
Yeah, and remember, guys, it's all free. So there's no reason not to join.